Welcome to the Maverick Paradox podcast, where we explore what it is to be a maverick and discover effective modes of leadership. I am Judith Germain, and my mission is to propel the maverick mindset into a world where character and integrity will ultimately have a higher premium than personality and bureaucracy. So thank you for joining me on this journey. If you would like to continue with me, then please subscribe to my podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, or one of the other popular podcast platforms. And today my guest is Stella Scott. Hi, Stella.
Hello.
Hi. I was just wondering if you could tell the listeners who you are and what you do.
I'm Swedish and American. I live in Malmö, and I am a Gestalt therapist, a coach, and an opera singer.
Oh wow! I didn't know that.
Right.
Cool.
So that puts me into this category of Mavericks, I guess.
And are you Maverick because it's unusual to be an opera singer, or?
No, what I mean is that I do different things and I think differently. I come with unexpected perspectives, which I've heard ever since I was a child. That I never heard that. I never heard that said like that before. What do you think about this? So people would come to me to get other perspectives, and that's how I ended up working with people, because I'm really interested in people, and that goes together with being an opera singer, or I'm a trained actor. And how do you look at people, and what drives people, and what is it in there? And that is what's so fascinating with being on stage, is that you can go in and explore other people's worlds. And that is what is so fascinating with working with people as a coach and a therapist, is that you get to be invited into other people's worlds, which is an honor in many ways.
Yeah, and that's really interesting. I think over time it's becoming more and more obvious that mavericks tend to have portfolio, I'm going to say careers, but yes, portfolio careers, but even portfolio within the career, that to remain an expert, they are specialists in so many areas.
Yes, I would say yes to that, most definitely. I think that we're too interested in too many things to be able to stay within the limits of what you're supposed to do.
Oh, that's the worst thing, supposed to do. I think I hate that expression more than any other expression. What am I supposed to be doing? I understand that one of your expertise is female leadership, so I'm very interested in discussing that from a maverick perspective, because people always think of mavericks as men, and forget that there are female mavericks too. So what is your perspective on how a maverick can impact on the leadership stage?
Well, the women I work with these days, if I take a little history on my journey as a therapist, I started out working with people, a lot of abuse. A lot of people came to me through the 12-step program, so it was like incest and sexual abuse and all kinds of things. And what people think is that is like a special category, and that when you talk with someone who's successful, they don't have that kind of story with them. And they do.
Yeah.
So what I do, my perspective is that I'm guiding successful women to fall in love with themselves, because self-hate is unbearable, and it affects everything. And what is so clear with the women I work with, is that their leadership becomes so much better, so much including a lot of people, when they actually include themselves in their lives and their full story, when they come congruent and authentic with themselves, about themselves. That doesn't mean that they go out and tell their story, but that they actually do land within. So this is my life, instead of trying to push it aside, and instead work through that and create a kind of self-worth by climbing like the corporate ladder. And that is so common, and they never talk about it, and no one would ever think that these women would have low self-esteem and a lack of internalized self-worth.
I think what's interesting I see in the corporate world is the women leaders that aren't successful but maybe senior are the ones that think they need to lead how a man or an alpha male would lead. Do you see that a lot in what you're doing?
Yeah, I think what I've recently learned that I had no idea about, because I'm a woman myself, at least here in Sweden, and probably in the rest of the world too, is that our societies are built upon the male structure, which is, I mean, the hierarchies are like so evident all the time. It's the same in the opera world as it is in the corporate world, even though people think that, oh, the artistic world is so free. So, no. But what it's based on is the military.
Oh, okay.
Right. And so this hierarchy, so boys are fostered into this. So in Sweden, we've had like mandatory, the military training, and you go through that. And that way you are being trained into the corporate world. And I had no idea that this is how it works. And how did I get to know this? Because we have a fantastic trans woman in Sweden, and she is the CEO of the biggest, largest, I don't know what is it. Anyway, it's insurance. And when she came out as a transgender woman, it was like a big thing, and she was really welcomed and has been welcomed, both when it comes to corporate leadership and when it comes to like female leadership into all kinds of places. And she had this program on the radio. In her program, she was talking about this thing that she could see it from two perspectives. Having been a male, gone through the military training, and then into the corporate world, and how she could see that women are excluded from that kind of knowledge, that kind of communication between men that all men have.
So I've said before, there's very few extreme mavericks that are female that survive, but there are socialized mavericks that are female that do very, very well, and they seem to be able to use their uniqueness in a way that gets attention. With your approach of having a holistic view of the feminine, is there a way, do you see more mavericks people coming through, or do you see more people having to adopt like a willfully independent, a more maverick way of being to survive?
I think we're like in the beginning of having the more female vibration. I'm not so much into like masculine and feminine that people talk a lot about. We are conformed into certain stereotypes.
Yes, I agree.
But I'm not so sure that this idea of feminine and masculine is real. For me, it's a way of keeping people in place.
Oh, interesting.
And we have used that in a long time. So, for instance, if we like talk about the Asian philosophy of yin yang, so there are like ideas of this is feminine and this is masculine, and so this one thing that is masculine is creativity. And I just cringe because
really?
The most yeah,
I don't see it like that. Wow, I didn't know that's what it was meant to be.
Okay, well, so the male is creative and active, and the woman is passive and receiving. The male is giving. So there's all these things, and I mean they're more or less like adapted or like a global view.
Yes.
Not in every society, but then the most creative thing there is on the planet is for me the act of creating a new human within your body.
Now, I am interested in talking about that. How would you create a new human within yourself?
Well, every woman has the capacity. We give birth.
Yes.
So, how can you be more giving than that? How can you be more active than that? How can you be more creative than that? There is nothing on the planet that tops that kind of creativity, you know? So,
that is true. But what about all those women out there who are saying, I don't want children, or...
Oh, I don't have children.
Okay. So how would you...
It's about the philosophy and the idea that women as the part of the species of the human race are passive. And that is not true. No, that we're not creative. On the contrary, we are the most creative species, people there are, because we can. Most of us. Some people don't have the capacity, and some people don't want children. But as a woman, you have that when you're born, as a girl. We all know this one can give birth.
I know it does feel a bit of a nonsense to give gender to things like creativity or
Exactly.
thinking, or that does sound mad. And maybe that's probably part of that maverick thinking, because I mean, I can't even contemplate the genders of that kind of stuff. But as you say, I don't fit in a box and I don't think in a way. And I guess I am not into conforming into stereotypes. And I think that's probably the difference with a lot of conformists, is that, you're raised in a certain way and you think, well, that's box. Actually, it reminds me of that whole thing they say about elephants, isn't it? Where if you tie an elephant up to a small stick when they're a baby,
yeah,
even when they're a large elephant, they still think they can't break through because they've conformed into that mode. And I've never really understood people who feel in that way. And I wonder whether it's because they're less curious about the world, so they don't see the possibilities.
I think there is something to that. I used to say that I am pathologically curious.
Oh, I love that. That would really sum up Maverick's pathologically curious. This is a phrase, if you don't mind, I'm definitely going to use.
Sure thing.
I love it.
So yes, I agree with that when you are conformed, and that is what I do in my work, is that I help women to break out of this conformed thinking, this very, very tight suit of this is how it is supposed to be, and they suffer within that. So when they come out, I call myself the queen coach, not because I'm the queen of coaches, or that I'm better than anyone else, but because I coach women into their own queendom.
I didn't know that was the reason why you called yourself that. So thanks for sharing that. What kind of steps? So if somebody's listening and they go, right, I want to be like that. What kind of steps do they need to take?
Well, that is purely individual. It really depends on where you're coming from, what your story is, and where you need to work, and where we need to start. So I do packages, not programs. And the packages, how much support do you need? I can run along. I do run along. That's how I work. I don't take on many, because I need to be very, very, very available. These are women that are in high corporate positions. Their schedule is, I have to adapt to their schedule and when they can and cannot do things. So it's not that do this and that step. I need to know who you are and where you're coming from and what your needs are and what you're suffering with.
So I understand that it's quite bespoke and individual, but is there a takeaway that someone could have, I don't know, you need to at least do 3 things to begin that journey, where it might be, I don't know, self-reflection, be more curious in the world and see what's going on. Is there something that's common between your clients to do this?
What is common is that it starts in childhood. Yeah, I've done this for 30 years, work with people, so that is my experience. It starts in childhood. So I have this, one of the women I'm working with today, she is in one of the, let's say, top 50 brands in the world. She has a very high position in one of these companies. And she was walking around looking ugly. She's a beautiful woman, and she's well dressed and everything, and she has the money and all that. But she would look at herself and think she was ugly. When she was 6 years old, a friend of hers who was 5 years old told her that she looked like Miss Piggy. She didn't even remember. It was while we were working that suddenly it was holy. And that is where, and then we also got to the 16-year-old who would look herself in the mirror and think and say to herself, "You're ugly." She is not ugly. And she felt that, and she's 50 now. And this has followed her. And we've been working together for a year. And we're going to go, and I worked in 6 months. So we've been had 2 6-month periods, and then we're going to have another 6-month period coming up now. So we have been in this year. When we had worked together for a month, she said, my whole life is changing. Yeah, good. That's the whole purpose of this. After the 6 months, she said, I think I have evolved more during these 6 months than when you in your first year of living. I can't compare it to anything else. So it really is like going down and see, who am I? And what do I have with me for my first 6 years? Because our brains work we only, get ready for living by tanka. Oh, that's a Swedish word. Sometimes I get a little confused here. Things into our head. We like program. Thank you. So like we get programmed by the theta waves, because we cannot move into beta. The brain doesn't create beta waves until like 6-7 years old, when we start school. So before that, we get completely programmed on how to work on this planet, and everything we get there is what stays with us. So I am the person who says this whole thing of think positive and blah blah. That is a good thing, being positive, but don't think that you can put a patch on the wound and it's going to heal underneath. No, it will get worse.
So, yes, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. And I think
so this thing of give us 3 tips. I do not give 3 tips, because there are none. If we're going to go deep, and I am the deep gal. If you want to work with me, we're going to go deep. We're going to create real change. It's not a quick fix. We can create a shift, like in the first. Usually, there's a shift in the first session. Actually,
yeah, I understand that.
It's not the fix, and that is what people think. They have an epiphany and aha, and then it's like, now it's no. And let me tell you like it is. No, it doesn't work that way. It's work, and it takes time, and you got to allow yourself the time to make it solid. And when it's solid, nothing can stop you from going further. But I have been on my own journey for 30 years, or really longer. I started when I was a child. I started meditating when I was 12, and I've been going since then. I'm today 60. So it's a lifelong process. And I have been working in really consciously with myself for 30 years, and I'm still going. I'm discovering new things about myself all the time.
That's what makes life interesting. I think it's interesting in the terms that people differ quite a lot, and I definitely understand about the childhood thing. And there's lots of different theories as to the different stages where things happen. The first 7 years, and then that 7 years, and whatnot. But what strikes me as interesting is the Mavericks that I've worked with, and I probably would say myself included, are already deep thinkers and are already people who spend a lot of time sorting their own head out. And I think that quite often you can get that epiphany and it's assimilated fairly quickly, because if it comes as a truth, and it sinks down and you go, yeah, that's what it is. It's like, okay, now I can move on. Because it's almost as if, and it's not as if I'm saying it's ignored. So I agree with you that once you find something, you need to work on it. It's not a case I'm saying it's ignored from this group of people. It's more that maybe the real knowledge has been bubbling along in the subconscious for a long time, and it just needs to be heard. Do you know what I mean? It's like, okay, that explains that. I can now.
The only person who really knows about you and your story is you.
Yes.
The one who has the answers is you. Yet, what people do is that they look in the other direction, even the Mavericks, because I do work with them. And what is problematic for a Maverick, especially if they're really gifted, is that it's in the head. It goes with every single one I've been working with. You keep it in your head, and it has to move down into your body. If you're not connecting it with your body, then it's head work. And that's, in my world, that's not real transformation.
No, I think we're saying the same thing, because I'm talking about assimilating it. It's just,
Yeah. So when you have the epiphany and it's still in your head,
nothing's changing.
Nothing changes. Yeah, something might change on the surface, but when the storm comes, and it hits you, then you will still keel over. You will fall. But if it's grounded and you have like rooted it all the way down into your body, down into the earth, down into the magma, then you will still stand. Yeah, you will be shaken, of course, because life shakes us. That's inevitable. But you will not be able to stand that way if it's still in your head and if it's an intellectual construct, which is what I see all the time. So another woman that I work with now, she had gone through about 15 years of like coaching and therapy and all kinds of modalities and such. And she said something like blah, 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 blah. And it was like in her head. And I said, well, you know what? I don't believe a word you're saying. And she stared at me because what she had said was like so smart and brilliant and da. And so shall we do this for real? And she was, I can't hide anything from you, can I? I said, no. That's why you're paying. I'm here to give you value for your money.
Well,
that is the thing that you have to, when you do it, you have to be, and she was ready. She was so ready, but she was not prepared that I would like uncover it on the first session.
Yeah, I definitely, I see that a lot. I mean, I talk about that in my book, The Maverick Paradox, The Secret Power Behind Successful Leaders, is that good socialized mavericks understand people and they can see through things, whether it's the way the bodies move, tonality, the pauses of things that are not said, and can actually have a real understanding and say, yeah, but that's not real. And I think quite often people have become so used to masking that they don't even know that they're masking.
That's right.
So they can't lead authentically because they don't know who they are anyway.
Exactly.
And then you point out.
Yes.
And sometimes I think it can either be, the responses can either be a kind of, yeah, I get it, I understand, or it could be really life-changing with a person where they break out into tears and go, oh my gosh, I totally get it. You don't really necessarily know what the reaction's going to be, but what they know is that there's safety in the reaction.
Yeah. And this is what makes them better leader.
Yeah, I mean, I think the old styles of leading where you knew everything, everyone follows you because you were the leader, almost I'd say like a military campaign.
That is exact. That's what I was talking about. That's exactly it. That's it.
I've had a couple of conversationalists here on the podcast who come from the military, who say that style of stereotypical military leadership is over.
Yep.
So I had one guy from the UK and one guy from the US, and they both said the same thing, in that military leadership now is much more collaborative, much more authentic than a stereotypical way. So I think if the military can lead by influence and trust, then I think it's about time organizations did the same thing.
The thing is that social change takes time because we have so many structures in place, and our programming that goes for everybody, no exceptions. Our programming is so deep, and because people don't go there and don't realize that it really is a deep program from a 6-year-old. So this woman, she had the 6-year-old steering her life. So we have and then we do everything from that. So and I see that a lot, in politics and in business and everywhere, that it's really not grown-up people doing things. It's children trying to survive, children in survival mode.
Yes, and it isn't as difficult as people assume it is to change. It's just you need to recognise first of all what needs to be changed, and then decide that that's what you want to do.
Yeah, it's the decision. That's right. And take that step and go there. And also it's not easy, it's not quick, and it's frequently painful. Because when you have built a persona, this is me, and that has to change, and you realize, oh dear, that is not really me. And then you also have to, something that I have experienced, that I have to have like a period of mourning because I've had a time, 20 years or 30 years or 60 years of living, being something that I'm not. And those are, if I put it bluntly, wasted years of authentic me.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to mourn, and we don't do that enough, and that doesn't have enough value. It's not given value. That mourning is something that is part of being human, and it's good. It's good to mourn.
I agree. I remember this really extreme Maverick I was talking to, and they was telling me, this is the situation they're in, and this is how it's all gone wrong, and they could see the patterns of their lives where they're always reacting and doing the same thing, and it's always going terribly, terribly wrong. So I said, these are the kind of things that you need to do to move forward. And yeah, I agree, but I'm not changing who I am. I'm going to be this. And I let them talk for a bit, and I said, okay, so it's not working. So how long are you prepared to continually repeat the same pattern, or are you ready to work on it? This particular individual kind of wants to hold on to who they are right now, which is fine. I've said, that's great. Come back when you're ready. When it becomes so painful that you want to change, and I'll be here. But I'm not going to stand here while you continue to, you're not ready to move. And there's other people who are, yes, I can see that this isn't working, and I want to change. And I think what stops people is they feel they'll lose themselves, but what they don't realise is that they're not losing themselves; they're gaining a better self.
Yeah, I have a few thoughts on that, and that is, first of all, we don't have any self-destructive behaviors. There is no self-destructive conduct whatsoever, and yes, I go into drugs and all that too. And why do I say that? Because from what I have learned and seen in my vast experience working with people that have been on drugs and alcohol and food addiction and everything, is that it is a survival mechanism.
Yeah,
it's a way to cope, right? So when you go and when you say, no, I'm not going to change, it's because you think you're gonna die. And we have to so much respect this and honor the survival mechanism of this person. And what I have seen in my work is that instead of telling them, well, come back when you're ready, honor that they need whatever is going on. And when they see that, okay, it's okay that I am this way, and it's okay that I can keep this, and we're not going to push this, then the desire to turn into who they really are and who they really can be comes up and grows organically, instead of being forced into, you gotta change. Well, so it's like a softer approach and more like humble towards how this person has actually survived, and that needs to be honored.
I agree in principle, but specifically with this individual and this individual's extreme Maverick nature, he needs to hear it in the way it was delivered. And I think part of life is recognizing where people are, and it's not. And I suppose in reality, this is within a conversation of 2 hours. This is not a conversation within 5 minutes. And sometimes people do need that shock of, actually, this person has seen through my mask, and now I need to decide on where I want to go with that. And I think that's what's important with any type of leadership role or position, is recognizing what people need in that moment, whether it is soft cuddles, whether it's been left alone, whether it's more of a sharper thing. And I think that partly comes from your own ability to flex and to know what's right to do.
Soft in my role is not mushy. I'm a very straightforward person. I think that is evident already.
Yeah, I mean, I'm talking generalities. This is not about your style, my style. Generally speaking, good leaders are ones that recognise their own faults and their own limitations, as well as their own ability to stretch and do what's right. And the person that's before them, you could, because you can have two people, twins with the same environment and same experience, similar experiences, but be quite different, and you would treat them differently.
Most definitely.
And I think that's the problem with a lot of modern leadership, is people go on a course or do something, and they think, okay, I have understood this particular thing, whatever theory it happens to be, and I now have to apply it consistently the same with every single person. regardless of where that person is. And I think it's a bit like, I don't know, if you were raising children and you had 2 children, you wouldn't treat them exactly the same because they need 2 different things. And it's the same with employees or clients or whatever, is that each person has an individual need. And I think one thing I notice as well is that you need to be honest and open when you meet people, because sometimes the answer is you need X and I can't deliver that for you. And I find that a lot of people, especially those that run in their businesses and maybe might be new in it, are reluctant to do that. Do you know what I mean? To say, oh yeah, I can fix everybody. And it's like, well, this person right here needs something else. And you aren't the person to deliver that. And I think it takes a certain strength and integrity to say to that person, it's not me you want Stella or whoever that person happens to be.
Yeah, I do that. I say no to people when I know we're not the right match. And I think that is doing the other person a service.
Yeah, it's honouring who they are, isn't it?
Yes, that's the thing. And for me, that is a word that I like to use. That it is about honouring, and also honouring yourself and your capacities, and where your capacities are not up to par with what that person. And I'm not really sure that up to par is the right wording, but that you're not a match for the greatest progress possible for this person.
Yeah, like for example, I found out very early on that I'm not the right person for individuals that like to talk a lot but not move forward, for example. I lose patience with it. You know, I learned very early on that, okay, I need to screen out that kind of individual because I'm no good I'm no good with the tell me all this stuff. Okay, that's great. And then they don't do anything.
Yeah, no, I'm not good with that either. I'm completely uninterested. Either we work or we don't.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, what is the point? Why are you paying me unless you're going to take action?
Yeah.
Waste of your money. And I can't, for my integrity levels, I can't just collect money for the sake of collecting money. That's not right. So you need to find somebody else that can give you what you need. I think that's a great place to end, Stella. So thank you for such a fantastic conversation.
Thank you for having me. It's been great.
Would you come back again?
Oh, sure. Sure. I'd love to.
Excellent. Thank you once again for tuning into the Maverick Paradox podcast. I hope you have enjoyed listening to my conversation with Stella as much as I enjoyed having it. If you would like to learn more about Mavericks and leadership, then please subscribe to my podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, or one of the other popular podcast platforms. Alternatively, apply to join the Maverick Paradox exclusive Facebook group. And my website is maverickparadox.com. Find out how willful independence can ultimately change all our futures. Thanks again, and see you soon.